we don't really push the envelope. More like open it. This is Litopia, After Dark. The net's first and foremost literary salon. A feast of ideas for your hungry mind. So pull up a chair and let's talk.
I've got so much left to say, but I'll take my words and walk away.
Hello everybody, this is Peter Cox, welcoming you back to Litopia After Dark. Now, we've had a couple of weeks sabbatical, while big things have been happening inside the colony, behind the scenes. You'll see them any day now, and we're certainly back with a bang tonight. Our guest this evening has led a life that many would consider to be every bit as extraordinary as any character from his books. He's been up, he's been down, never for very long though, but he's always kept on writing. Something like 270 million, yes, 270 million books in print. His current book, The Sins of the Father, is riding high in the bestseller charts and is the second volume in the Clifton Chronicles saga. Jeffrey Archer, welcome to Litopia After Dark.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now, your life has been pretty mythical, actually. I'm wondering if you could have been a character from mythology, who would you have chosen?
Ganesh, the Hindu god of the arts and sciences. Partly because I'm a great lover of India, and they've been tremendous supporters of mine over the years. And I'm a great admirer of Ganesh.
That's an elephant, Jeffrey.
Well, it's half elephant. He's only got one tusk, poor fellow, with a big belly, which I am avoiding at the moment. I'm slimming again, so I'm not a true Ganesh, but I'm a Ganesh fan. And he's a very handsome fellow. Don't you be rude about him.
Well, I'm astounded, but I think I did a very good choice indeed. Welcome to my co-host from the Stygian darkness that is England's West Country. It's Dave Bartram. Dave, same question for you, really. I've got you down maybe, I don't know, as sun god Apollo, but I could be wrong. Who would you have been?
Oh, it's a tricky one. I see. I was going all Norse until Jeffrey went all Eastern, and I suddenly thought,
yes,
I was going to go for Loki because he had a bit of a laugh. And then I thought, no, I'd go for the Chinese monkey god.
What's his name? Chinese monkey god.
It was
That's not a
Monkey.
good enough reply.
I know.
What?
I'm thinking of the 1970s Chinese television, Japanese television serial called Monkey. I thought he had a bit of a laugh. He ran around with a big stick and had a cloud.
1970 television program.
It's mythical to me.
Get with it, Dave.
I get with the program.
Dave, just been put in your place already by Jeffrey.
I know, I've been sorted out already.
Absolutely, yes.
Dear.
Ali, I consider you to be goddess of the chat room. My guess is you probably would have been one of the muses. Is that right? Am I right or wrong?
Well, it was a toss-up, actually, between Pegasus and Minerva. But actually, I think I'll go for Pegasus, because if you think of pigeons, well, Pegasus could have a lot more fun, really, couldn't he?
Absolutely right, yes. You're the only one of the three to be totally classical, I think, at least in the Western tradition.
Correct.
Yes.
It's a very limited aspiration for a mythological choice, though, to be able to poop on people from height.
A winged horse, come on.
Oh,
No motorway traffic. Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Do winged horses do that thing with the head that pigeons do?
I think so, actually, yes. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, because that would kind of knock the whole kind of glamour of it a bit, wouldn't it?
Of course, the ancient Greeks were very big on prophecy, and I think it's a safe bet to predict that it's going to be a cracking show tonight on the net's first and foremost literary salon, Litopia After Dark.
Join us in the chat room for the net's first and foremost literary salon, Litopia After Dark. Intelligent listening for dangerous minds.
Jeffrey Archer, your first published book was Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, way back in the Dark Ages, 1976. When did you actually start writing?
I didn't start writing until the age of 34. I came to writing almost by mistake, in the sense that I'd left the House of Commons and was facing bankruptcy, and thank heavens didn't go bankrupt, sat down and wrote my first book, as you said, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, which went to its 16th publisher before it was actually published. 15 people turned it down. Finally raised the monumental sum of £3,000 in hardback.
Really?
And then went into softback. It started off with Jonathan Cape in hardback, and they published 3,000 copies. They paid me £1 a copy, which didn't exactly make me a fortune.
Yeah.
And then it went into paperback, and they published 25,000 copies. And they sold them in a month. So I rang them up and said, are you going to publish another 25,000? And they said, certainly not. We want your next book. I said, no. You've sold 25,000 in a month. Sell another 25. No. They said, yes. I said, no. They said. And they published another 25,000 and sold them in a month. So I rang them up again and said, are you going to publish another 25,000? Yes. Yeah, no. They finally did. Last month, I had to ring them up and ask if they were going to publish another 25,000.
Some things don't change. Welcome to the publishing business. Extraordinary, really. So you're not one of these people who constantly had a book in the bottom drawer from the age of 0.
No, absolutely not. I think I was always a storyteller. I think I enjoyed being a raconteur. I think I enjoyed telling stories. It had never crossed my mind you could actually be paid for it. And it could be what might be described as a proper job. I just had whatever gift that is, and was surprised that you could actually make a living and out of it and conduct a profession in that way.
Would you still carry on writing if you didn't get paid for it?
No, I certainly wouldn't spend the hours, 1,000 hours on each book. I would have to earn a living doing something else, but I do enjoy it. I get immense enjoyment out of it, and of course immense enjoyment from the results. But there's no one alive who can afford to write 16 novels if they're not being paid. They'd have to do a proper job.
So for you, this has always been a business, first and foremost?
No, absolutely not. The first book, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, when I'd finished it, my wife suggested I went out and got a proper job.
Oh, really?
So I never considered it as in those days. It wasn't until Cain and Abel, which was the real breakthrough, that I thought, wait a moment, I can do this as a profession.
Well, Not a Penny More eventually sold over 27 billion copies, didn't it? I mean, that's like 10% of your total sales. So at what point did that actually take off?
Oh, not until Cain and Abel. What happened with Cain and Abel was people bought the first 2 books, Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, and Shall We Tell the President, after Cain and Abel had gone out. And I think that happens to any author who has a big break. They go back to their past books and look and see what they've written before. I don't think there's anything new in that. And that's certainly what happened after Cain and Abel.
You're not exactly a passive author. You're not just going to sit on your behind and let the publisher do whatever publicity or marketing. I mean, presumably you were directly involved in that, very much hands-on from the beginning, were you?
Yes, I was. But actually, in the end, it makes no difference. And I can prove that because regularly people say, well, of course, you were a member of Parliament. You're well known. Of course, your book will sell. That's absolute drivel. If the book isn't good enough, the public won't wear it. Bob Hope came out the same day as David Niven, and Bob Hope was far better known than David Niven. And David Niven's book, The Moon's a Balloon, was an almighty worldwide success because it was a damn good read.
I remember it.
Whereas Bob Hope's memoirs were quite amusing and funny, and they did well. But David Niven outsold him 3-1. And that's always been the proof to me that actually it doesn't matter what the book's like.
Now, you've been quoted quite recently, an interview by Anthony Horowitz, as saying a storyteller shouldn't know what's on the next page.
Yes, I believe that very firmly. I think that's the difference between a storyteller and a writer. If you plot everything out and plan everything, the bright reader will work out where you're going. You're dealing with a sharp and an imaginative public. A lot of them will say, oh, I can see where you're going, Geoffrey. Oh, I can see what you're doing next. If I don't know myself, how can they possibly know? So I get up each morning and pray that the next chapter will come, that the next page will come. And often it goes off in a totally different direction. For example, in the latest book, The Sins of the Father, I brought in a lawyer called Sefton Jelks to get Harry Clifton off the hook for a murder he hadn't committed. I mentally thought when Sefton Jelks walked onto the page, he was good for 2 or 3 pages, and he was there 412 pages later. And that can happen to an author. Someone walks onto a page and dictates the pace and takes you where he or she wants to go.
Well, don't tell me what happened, because I'm actually halfway through, and yes, I can't say I care for Sefton Jelks at all, actually.
No, he's not a good piece of work,
Quite a nasty piece of work.
That reminds me of probably the most famous example of that is Strider in Lord of the Rings. Because Tolkien famously wrote, this character has appeared, I have no idea who he is.
Yes.
And of course he went on to be one of the pivotal characters in the whole mythology and end up having this whole backstory written and the whole thing created around this guy who just walked into a pub basically.
Oh, that's very easy to believe. Very easy to believe.
Honestly, do you do no plotting, no structuring at all? You can't just sit
Absolutely
down.
no structure
You
at all.
sit down with a blank piece of paper and you write the first scene.
Well, no, I think for 3 months before I sit down with a blank piece of paper. So
Right.
I've got, when I say no, I may, if I'm very, very lucky, have 2 chapters in my mind. But that doesn't mean if the second chapter goes in a certain direction, I'm left with no choice but to follow it and go with it. It's very dangerous to have more than 2 chapters in mind, because what you'll find is it doesn't happen. By the time you get to chapter 3, someone has taken over and it's gone off in a totally different direction.
Do you have a conclusion in mind?
Never. I haven't got a clue how. It's exactly the opposite to a short story. A short story, I pretty well always know the last line. I know where I'm going. I know, because it's a small construction, probably 3,000 words, and it rests on the twist in the tale. So I have to know the last line. But with a novel, I haven't got a blooming clue.
Now, you also say in that interview, storytellers are very rare, which is absolutely true, but they create a lot of envy. Have you encountered much envy or snobbery?
Well, I think the critics have been very generous lately, as you know, and I've since won 2 awards in France and 1 in Germany. So that's just plain fact. But yes, I think there's a lot of people who feel storytelling is really rather simple. One of my closest and dearest friends at Oxford once read Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, and genuinely said to me, it looks very easy. And he was a big enough man to try himself and say, it ain't as easy as it looks.
Ali, I see the chat room is fairly buzzing. What are the questions?
We've had a question from offsite, actually. Island Writer wants to know that, Geoffrey, if you had to choose one profession, would it be politics, writing, acting? And she cites your cameo in Bridget Jones' Diary at Salman Rushdie's book launch, or something else.
Yeah. Well, I think most of us, you know, would love to do something completely different. That's very human. I'd love to have captained the England cricket team. One of my major problems on that particular front is that I can't bowl, bat or field. But it doesn't stop me wanting to be the captain. My wife is a distinguished scientist. She'd actually rather sing at the Royal Opera House. But I think if you ask any human being, there's something else they want to do. But nowadays, I love my writing and getting so much happiness and success from it that I don't actually want to do at the moment, partly because I accept the fact that my days of being offered the chance to captain the England cricket team are diminishing by the hour.
No, you never know. Some of the form that's been shown fairly recently.
Yeah, you might do a better job, actually, Geoffrey, yeah.
Slip in there.
Just coming back to the Clifton Chronicles, because this is book 2 in the Clifton Chronicles. You've got a protagonist here, Harry, Docker's son, backstreets of Bristol, goes to Oxford, meets the love of his life when they're both very young. His mum works as a waitress. He gets a stiff jail sentence. These are all points of similarities to your own life, really. I was wondering how autobiographical both this is and, in general, your writing is.
It's a very fair question. I always say to young authors who come to see me, or people who come to see me saying, look, I want to be a writer, I always say, stick to what you know about. And the reason I put the Clifton Chronicles in the West Country was because I was brought up in Weston-super-Mare. I know Bristol very well. I think I understand the West Country psyche. And I always say to young people, don't put it in Liverpool or Durham or Manchester because you think that is what the public will like. Stick to what you know and feel at ease with. You only have to look at Jane Austen. She wrote 6 novels in her lifetime, 6 of the greatest novels that ever written. She lived in a small village in a comfortably middle class, in a comfortably middle class family, and she wrote virtually the same story 6 times running, and all 6 of them are wonderful. She's not only a great writer, she's a great storyteller. So when young people say to me, why do you do that, or why do I say, look, don't write a ghost story because ghost stories are in. Don't write about monsters or sex or violence because that's in. Write what you feel at ease with.
Just pursuing that point actually raised in the chat room, I'm wondering if you could send a note back in time, way back to 76, to the younger Geoffrey Archer, who just started his writing career then. What would you advise yourself? Would it be maybe forget about the politics, concentrate on the writing?
Well, I think the problem is with having had 2 professions, that of politics and writing, it's been a very great privilege. And yes, perhaps it would have helped my writing career if I'd never become involved in politics. But if you're asking me, would I have missed the 11 years with Margaret Thatcher and the 7 years with John Major, I'd be very sorry to have done so. They were remarkable years to have been involved, even at a lower level. So I think I've had a privileged life. And I'd also add that I suspect mixing in that world, touching those people, didn't do any harm to the storytelling.
It's all good material, isn't it? Just thinking
Exactly.
about 270 million books. So if we do a little bit of extrapolation there, say each one has been read by maybe 3 people or so, that's actually getting on for possibly 1 billion people you've entertained, 1 billion people's lives you've touched a little bit. And that's actually more than most politicians can ever dream of doing.
Yes, I'm afraid that's true. And indeed, you can extrapolate the figures. I think the figures in Britain are 2.3 readers for every book. In America, 2.4 readers. The fascinating one is India. India have 50 people for every book. It goes around villages, it goes around schools, it goes around communities. They buy one book, and when they come for a signing, it's falling apart. The damn thing's got half the pages missing. So they're completely out of proportion to the rest of the world. But you're quite right. If you extrapolate beyond the figures of just sales, but you also have to go back as well, because many of those people are fans of mine that have read every book. So you can't assume of course, they're not all new readers. Most of them are old fans coming back to buy the new book.
Yeah. Now, fast forward in time a little bit, 2007, something that caught my eye. I haven't read yet, but I may well do, actually. The Gospel According to Judas presents the events of the New Testament through the eyes of Judas Iscariot. Seems a very curious project for you to get involved in, really, unlike anything you've done before. What was the thinking there?
Quite right. Well, I actually thought, and I was wrong, that it would be a fascinatingly interesting people and it would be a worldwide bestseller. It's been the least successful of my books.
Really?
It was a privilege to work with a distinguished professor from Australia, and we collaborated on this, and it could not have existed without his collaboration. He was the brains behind the operation. I was the storyteller, and I put to him that it would be an interesting thesis that our Lord was incapable of picking a truly bad man to be one of his disciples, and therefore could we assume that Judas possibly had some virtues and had his reasons for wanting Jesus to come out in the open and lead. The professor agreed with this. It was not a philosophy that was unknown in the church, and advised me on it. And together we wrote the book. And I'm happy to say that he was able to build a missionary station in an island off Australia with the money we made, but it only just about covered the advance.
But why did you pick...
So he did very well.
What was it so appealed to you about the character of Judas?
I suppose just simply that. How could our Lord, when picking people to put his cause, have made such a disastrous mistake? Wasn't there some reason he'd picked this person?
Is it in some ways an exploration of betrayal?
Yes, I suppose so. Yes.
Ali, more questions in the chat room, please.
Roaring Girl wants to know if Geoffrey's often turned to the Bible for storytelling inspiration.
I love the title sometimes. The new book's called The Sins of the Father, which of course is biblical. They make great titles, biblical subjects. And as so many people have often said, great parts of it are clearly fiction, and they're damn good stories. The truth is, there are very few original stories. Even Shakespeare was relying on the stories of other people. And it's quite difficult nowadays to write something that can genuinely be described as original. So you've really got to rely on the old maxim, the way they tell them.
Yeah, well, Homer said there were only 3 stories, didn't he? You know, there's a meeting, a metamorphosis, and a journey. And any narrative is one of those or a combination of those, and there aren't any others. And if you actually think about it, there aren't.
I accept that. But of course, in the end, I accept that totally. In the end, you've got to spread that story out. I mean, Cain and Abel is the story of 2 men born on the same day, one with everything, one with nothing. 250,000 words later, you've got a book. Each person would write that theme, that idea, in a different way.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm wondering how important the US market is to you, Geoffrey.
Oh, very important. It was, in theory, the largest market in the world. this was changed in about 5 years ago, I learned quite by mistake from a very distinguished journalist with the Wall Street Journal, who asked to see me when I was last in the United States. And he sat down with me and said, do you realize you probably have a larger reader market in India than America? And he said he felt this was probably true for John Grisham and Stephen King as well, and neither of them realized it. And frankly, I didn't. He was then the one who put it to me that Indians are in the habit of at least 10 people reading every book, and that because they have 150 million English-reading people, and this is the very 150 million who are ambitious to succeed and make an inroad, that what they're doing is reading English books. What I discovered quite by mistake when I went over there, and I've now been over several times, is the other author who's having the same joy with the Indians is P.G. Wodehouse.
Oh, really?
And so it's clear they love the English people. So the English themes I write about clearly hit a note with them.
Yes, I think you've got something very interesting to say about that particular market. Often overlooked, actually. Just coming back to the UK, though, the US market is a very frustrating market for many, many authors to try and crack. You know, Churchill's quote about two nations divided by a common language. Any tips?
Well, no, again, you need luck, because the American people decide what they want to buy. I mean, the public's very funny about this. You can never tell what they're going to do, never where they're going to go. Suddenly a book shoots to #1 and you wonder why. And another book that everyone says is going to go in the profession, says everyone is going to go to, I'm not talking about my own books, talking about other people's books, doesn't take off. The Life of Pi is a classic example.
Yeah.
I thought The Life of Pi was wonderful and went to #1 in several countries and did nothing in several other countries. So the local people make these decisions. For example, yes, I have wonderful success in India and now France, but I do little or nothing in Italy. And you can never explain these things.
Stateside, did you at one stage say, look, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to push myself, I'm going to push the publisher, and I'm going to make this market mine?
Well, 30 years ago, I traveled over to America and did a 17-city tour in 21 days for Cain and Abel. And you don't do that any longer. They're not interested. It's fascinating how the world has changed. They now want you to do a tweet. And so I'm big on my tweet. I have a lot of tweets. I do 3 tweets a day now.
Do you?
Tweet. And I have a Facebook, and I have a blog which is read by 1,600,000 people. And they say, no, we don't need you going around America. Just tweet. Do your Facebook, shove your blog out.
What do you find to tweet about?
I can't argue with that, because a friend of mine
about?
who you mentioned, Anthony Horowitz, has just done a large tour of America. And he told me that the crowds were not very large and the signing sessions were not very large. And he was probably, again, getting far more out of tweeting.
What do you tweet about?
Oh, it depends what I'm doing. It's usually about what I'm doing that day. And as I do I'm very privileged to have an interesting life, I will just tell people I'm off to the theatre, I'm off to a cricket match, I'm watching the rugby, I'm writing the next chapter, and they all come flying back. And because of my love of cricket, I tell them my views on the latest test match or whatever is going on, and they tweet away like mad.
Sense of humour. And your political days, I mean, politicians don't really have a sense of humour. You've got a sense of humour. What tickles you? Humour's
a funny thing, isn't it? There are some, and we were discussing it the other day, going back to my youth, whereas I loved Tony Hancock, I couldn't understand Benny Hill. And of course, humour's an individual thing. You're never quite sure what makes you really really makes you laugh out loud, what it is. Only that when it does, there it is in front of you. But what tickles my sense of humour, the older members listening to this will remember the great Tony Hancock.
Yeah.
I thought he was wonderful. Peter Sellers, very clever.
We are going back quite a way now, aren't we?
I'm afraid so, because some of the modern stand-up comics who imagine it's funny merely to swear every other word doesn't appeal to me greatly. Give me some real humor. I like Woody Allen. That's going back away as well. I like real, clever, worded humor.
Yes. Well, did you see Midnight in Paris?
Yes, I did.
Do you like it?
Yes, I did. He's a very clever man. I have to agree with the critics that he's up and down. I'd have to agree that you can never quite be sure what you're going to get. But there can't be any doubt about his genius.
Do you ever read any of his short stories out of interest?
Yes, I have. He's not my favourite short story teller among
he's a bit hit and miss. Some of them are very good and some of them are quite laborious. But he's one of those people, when he hits the mark, he hits it absolutely spot on, but when he misses quite dramatically.
And same with his humour. I mean, that marvellous line about when my father died, my mother put an advertisement in the New York Times saying, Cohen dead. And the New York Times rang up and said, Madam, we must have 6 words. We must have at least 5 words. And my mother replied, Cohen dead, Volkswagen for sale. I mean, I love that sort of humour. That's, I think, Woody Allen at his cleverest. But when you go back, may I go back to short stories just for a moment and say, as India has come up, I do commend to the people listening to this program, many of you may well, of course, already know him, the great R.K. Narayan, who I think is one of the great short stories of all time. And Maguldi Days, I consider nothing less than a masterpiece, and I agree with Graham Greene when he said the man should have got the Nobel Prize. I'm always searching for an author I've never heard of before. I'm always searching for a book that is recommended, and I would say to people, if you like short stories, Penguin produce R.K. Narayan, and he's, in my view, absolutely the best.
Good advice there.
And there's Ruth Prawo Jabvala as well. Her short stories are wonderful.
Oh, she's wonderful.
Absolutely stunning.
Not Indian, in the true sense.
No, I know she's not. No, she's not Indian, but she
it's
writes
a wonderful
about
Indian
India.
name. She's married to an Indian, but she's not an Indian. She's a fine writer. Fine.
The atmosphere she conjures with these little vignettes of life are quite extraordinary, I find.
Oh yes, I know she's a great writer.
Ali, questions from the chat room, please.
Crime Afoot says, like anyone with an artistic temperament, you've always liked to take risks and be prepared to take the consequences. What was the biggest risk you took, and what were the consequences?
That's a tricky one to answer because you're asking me to remember my whole life in one moment.
Just remember a bit
particular.
of it.
I think one of the things I do now is invest in the theatre, which frankly is a risk every day of the week. But then I've had successes like Grease and Dirty Dancing, and had failures where I've lost every money. You lost every penny. You sometimes, when you're picking a show, have to have the courage of your own convictions, and you get it wrong. The classic run was Enron. I put a sum of money into Enron in London, and it doubled. I then, in my stupidity, thought, well, if Enron has succeeded in London, it'll be a triumph in New York. And I not only took out what I'd put in, but the profit as well, and put the whole lot into New York, and the show closed in 3 weeks.
That wouldn't have been a Mr. Madoff advising you to do that, would it, by any chance?
No.
Just going back to the political side of things, if you had just gone 1 or 2 more rungs up the ladder, I mean, you could easily, quite conceivably, have been Prime Minister. Just wondering if that alternative history had manifested itself. If you had been Prime Minister, what would the country look like today? Would it look very different?
I had the privilege of serving 2 Prime Ministers, so that was the highest I ever reached. When you go into politics, and I entered the House of Commons at the age of 29, in the House of Lords at the age of 52, there's not much point in going into these jobs, into these positions, unless you get a job, unless you're able to do things and change things. So naturally, to take your comment further, I would have loved to have gone 1 or 2 rungs higher. It wasn't to be, and so be it. I had the privilege of serving Margaret Thatcher, who remains a close friend, and John Major, who remains a close friend, and had 17 very interesting and fascinating years, which certainly, as I said earlier, didn't do any harm when it came to writing the books.
But what would the country look like now, Geoffrey, if you had been?
We'd all play cricket night and day. Football would be banned.
Yeah, that's got my vote straight off. Yeah, definitely.
Yes, you sold a few more books already. You've survived a lot. You've survived near bankruptcy, 3 high-profile political resignations, 2 years in prison. You've been compared politically to another great survivor on the other side of the chamber, of course, Lord Mandelson. How do you feel about those comparisons?
Peter Mandelson's an extremely able man. And I agree, he's a great survivor. And he was the architect, along with 1 or 2 others, of the great 172-vote victory 100 and so seat victory over the Conservative Party. He is a man not to be underestimated.
So do you feel a comparison to Mandelson is flattering? Or,
No. Peter has no interest, not that I'm ever been aware of, has no interest in the theatre and the arts and writing in the way I do. He's written his memoirs, but there's no suggestion that, I live in the theatre. I go twice a week. I'm in an art gallery 3 times a week. I don't think the comparison is there. He's an extremely able man, and as I say, was the architect of Tony Blair's victory and the remarkable length of time Tony Blair stayed in power.
Yes, and everything that happened
fellow.
as a result of that, of course. I suppose the only person on the scene at the moment who could be vaguely compared to you would be Boris Johnson. He's got the same sort of colourful life. Other than that, it's all a bit grey, isn't it, don't you think?
Well, Boris certainly isn't grey. You're quite right there. I think we always think the last generation, and I'm 72 now, I think the last generation always thinks that they were the most exciting, which is absolute rubbish.
There's some pretty nasty things happening in the Middle East. It could be war. How do you see things happening for the rest of this year?
It's awful. The whole Syria thing is just too dreadful to contemplate. And I have immense sympathy with the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. They're in the middle of Afghanistan. Iran clearly is a massive problem. Syria is a massive problem. We're reminded that those are the 3 biggest, but there are also other problems around the world. What would happen if Israel decided to drop a bomb on Iran? The world is a mess at the moment, and on top of that, the financial situation in almost every country on earth, with a few minor exceptions, are all pretty well facing bankruptcy.
Someone who's in trouble at the moment, of course, is Mr. Murdoch and his various endeavours. I was wondering how you felt about that. Do you feel, a little bit of schadenfreude that the Murdoch enterprise is having so many problems at the moment? Would you like to see more regulation?
No, I think there's nothing wrong with a free press. It's the reason we're a democracy. I think we are about to find out, if we haven't already found out, that some people had a rule for themselves that they felt didn't need to apply to the rest of us. And time will tell. Only time will tell. But it will be fascinating to see and say, if we had this interview in 2 years' time, possibly 3, but 2 years' time, how it will have all panned out. Because it's quite difficult at the moment to see whether the big issue is going to be police bribery or whether the big issue is going to be hacking. We don't yet quite know what is going to be the major thing we face on this.
Yeah, it's still developing, isn't it? Ali Chapman.
They're actually interested in the politics as well. Ireland wants to know what your thoughts are on the Republican presidential nomination infighting. Do you see similarities with British politics?
Are we talking presidential United States of America?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Well, I'm of absolutely no doubt that Obama cannot lose. I just don't see how Romney, having gone through a campaign where the rest of the Republican Party, or half of the Republican Party, spend their lives tearing him apart, can hope to then elect him to beat Obama. It's just farcical. I would put, if I'm not a betting man, but if this comes from Ireland, I'd say to my Irish friends, put your money in it's better than most horses. Put your money on Obama now. It's only a 2-horse race. I'm pretty sure Romney will get it. I don't see how Santorum or Gingrich can come through. And if they decide to go on and on to the bitter end, when we get to the convention, the only man who will suffer is Romney himself. On top of that, I don't think Romney is that exciting a candidate. I believe the 3 best candidates are sitting in the wings waiting for Obama to finish his 8 years. The next election between the Republicans and the Democrats will be far more fascinating when you get Governor Christie and you get Jeb Bush, who they say is by far the most impressive of the Bushes, out there fighting. And perhaps the Democrats will find another leader. That'll be a much more interesting contest than the one that we're facing this November.
I just had an image of 3 different shrubs. You said the most impressive of the bushes, and I was thinking a big rhododendron, kind of a nice bay hedge or something. Yeah.
Well, everybody says that the former governor of Florida, Jeb Bush, is a remarkable man, and that it was always been a mistake that George W. got even the nomination before Jeb, but Jeb was then just come away from being governor. And there are a lot of people, of course, who say that no one will ever have another Bush, that he really will not be taken seriously as a candidate. It's going to be fascinating to see how it pans out.
One of your observations about in the prison diaries was about the extraordinary number of people who are in prison who are illiterate. Now, that obviously concerns us a lot too. There are entire towns and sometimes cities now in the States where the literacy rate is over 50%, which is actually quite shocking.
Terrifying.
Why, just coming back to home now, why is it that so many people in prison are illiterate?
Well, I think they come from backgrounds that don't take education seriously, and in many cases, to be fair, are not given the opportunity. I am involved in a case at the moment with a murderer who is completing his sentence. I knew he was bright the moment I met him, and offered him any help I could give in the form of books, anything he needed. I'm very proud to say I attended his Bachelor of Arts degree ceremony 3 years ago. He's just coming to the end of his Master of Arts, and he'll leave prison in a few years' time, I suspect, with a PhD. So it's often not that they're totally stupid. On the contrary, some of them are extremely bright. They've never been given the opportunity. I've never believed in equality. I think equality is a joke. But I've always believed in equality of opportunity. You must allow any child to be given the chance to do well at something. They may be an artist, they may be a ballet dancer, they may be a singer, they may be a writer, they may want to build bridges, whatever it is. You must find out what that talent is and let them expand it.
So you actually helped this particular person?
Yes, Billy Little, who's in for murder, unquestionably one of the brightest people of his generation, extremely bright man, sat down and said, I'm going to use the time. And as I say, he's done his A-levels, he's done his Bachelor of Arts, he's just completing his Master of Arts, which is a long thesis. And he is then considering doing a PhD. And I've played a minor part in assisting him. The hard work, the hours of dedication has been done by him.
Does that reflect on your part a change of attitude? Because just 8 years before you went into prison, you addressed the Tory party and you said you didn't like the role of do-gooders in prison, and you said that you wanted tougher prison conditions to prevent criminals from reoffending. Now, has your attitude changed?
I still agree with that. There's a great deal of difference between a professional criminal who reoffends. Funnily enough, murderers are almost a group on their own. They're a very strange group. Many of them, actually, it sounds a very strange thing to say on your book program, only ever commit one offense in their whole life. Several murderers, there's often a domestic reason or a terrible reason, but they're often not what I would call classic reoffending prisoners. They're the ones that are hard to deal with, the ones who immediately they're released have no intention of doing anything but offending again.
Well,
we
have a lot of crime writers on, and they say exactly the same thing, actually. And many crime writers get, first-hand experience of exactly what you've done, actually. But I just want to press you on this. I mean, you did call for tougher prison conditions, and are now, in hindsight, do you still want tougher conditions?
I still want tough sentences for people who reoffend, yes.
Right, but actually conditions inside, do you think they should be tougher?
No, I think they've probably got it about right.
Ali, chat room, please.
In fact, there's quite a few purely writing-based questions, which would be nice to clear. Ireland wants to know, do you still write everything by hand? Famously, you can't type, is that right?
That is correct. I can't use any machinery. I'm pathetic in modern machinery. I handwrite every word. I write it in pen to begin with, and then my secretary types it up triple space, then I work with a pencil. So no, I'm an old-fashioned, but I am told that about 50% or 40% of writers are still using a handwritten implement. I certainly find, I've just come out of a writing session, you get a real kick out of the fact that you seem to have done it yourself. I always feel with machines, you feel you're being assisted. No, I like the old-fashioned way. So yes, the answer to the Irish question is yes, I am still handwriting.
I agree with you. Actually, I put mine in a school notebook to begin with.
Yeah.
So I'm a secret.
Yeah.
I'm a closet handwriter as well. So who tweets for you?
I dictate them.
You dictate
and of course,
your
they're very
tweets.
short. You have to get exactly the right one. Try to get. the right number of
Characters.
symbols. So I dictate them and they go straight out.
I think you must be the only person who dictates his tweets.
Yeah, I think it
That's
must be
quite
it.
something. That's quite
I
something.
bet the Queen does.
Actually, yes, probably.
I follow the Queen. Well, she says she's the Queen. I'm not entirely convinced it is actually the Queen.
Does she tweet?
Well, there is somebody who tweet Queens as the tweet. That would be bad.
'Cause I tweet
Queens as
3
the
times
Queen. Queens as that would be
I
terrible.
think Buckingham
No.
Palace does tweet. I'm not sure if it was her.
Yeah, no,
herself,
there is somebody I follow, but I don't think it's the actual Queen. I think it might be somebody pretending.
Did they
to
follow
be
you
her.
back, Dave?
No, I don't think
Followed
so.
by the Queen.
No?
What's
By
your
the Queen.
take
Stalked
generally?
by royalty. Yeah.
What's your take generally, Jeffrey, on new media? I mean, have you got an iPad? Are you interested in that kind of stuff?
I have a Kindle, which is now part of my life, which I, if I'm abroad or on an airplane, I find very convenient if I want to read the latest book. I'd still actually rather have a book. I like to have and to hold. I like to turn the page. But I think it's an amazing implement, and if you've got to get into the real world, I have to face the fact now that 25% of my readers are reading me on some form, such as Kindle, and I'd better wake up to it.
Yeah, and of course, sadly, we've got bookshops closing all over the place too, so quite possibly.
Everywhere.
Yes, quite
Everywhere.
possibly the future is online. Now, how would you feel about that if the only place you can buy a book is on your computer?
Well, that's the new generation. I'm in no position to complain. Each generation moves on. Dickens, of course, in his day, there wasn't any television, any radio, much entertainment. So the book was very popular. The book, I still think, is popular. It'll just be read in a different way. I've no quarrel with that. Each generation must go its own way.
Well, interestingly, actually, Joseph V. Sultana feels that if Geoffrey was Prime Minister, then libraries would still be open. So there's a lot of support for you.
Is that true, Jeffrey?
Well, I'm certainly a great fan of libraries. I think they were the secret when I was a child, that I could pop along and see Miss Treadgold, who was in charge of my library, and say, I want a book on X or Y, and her great years of wisdom and advice would come out. I think it's sad when I hear that libraries are closing all the time. And certainly for people who can't, books are actually rather cheap compared with most entertainment.
Yeah.
You can get a hardback for the price of a well, really, for a size of a cinema ticket.
Yep.
So I'm being sold. I'm horrified to tell you that I'm being sold in Tesco. The latest book, The Sins of the Father, is being sold in Tesco for £7.46.
Oh, no.
It's almost the price of a softback. So there's no excuse on a financial front to say I can't afford a book. Well, then you can't afford to go to a cinema. You can't afford to do anything.
Emma wants to know, how many books do you have on your bookshelves? Can you estimate for us, Geoffrey?
I would think 3,000, yeah. I've given a lot of them away recently. I've given a lot of them away. I've started, because of my age, I've started giving both pictures and books away the whole time. Because they just take up every single shelf. Not a record, I might say. When I once went to the house of Maynard Keynes's brother, Sir Geoffrey Keynes, and you couldn't see the walls because every single wall was just piled up with books. I've never seen so many books in one house. In fact, when you walked up the stairs, even the steps were covered in books.
That's
so
right. I find that very attractive, actually.
Yes, well, I think he had 10,000 books.
Wow. Yes, brilliant.
So you've certainly done your bit to support the starving novelist there by buying all those books.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Ali, because the truth is that it's a tough profession at the moment. The ones at the very top, yes, do earn a good living, but it's not far down the list that it's quite hard to make a living at all.
Yes, it is true.
What's your
As you
take
were on
on
there.
genre out of interest? There's an awful lot of kind of snobbery out there in the literary world, isn't there? You know, kind of there's literary fiction, which is this amorphous thing that kind of defies categorization. And then there's what's called genre fiction, and it's somehow looked down on as a kind of poorer relation. And I wonder where you sat in that kind of view. Do you have a view at all, or do you think it's all good if it's good storytelling and people can read it and enjoy it?
Well, I admire great writing. I see Nadim Godima's book has just come out, and she's receiving the most amazing crits in the Sunday papers today. And she's a truly great writer and a Nobel Prize winner. But I don't think many people read her. I think what one tries to do is be a combination of a writer and a storyteller and do the best you possibly can. You're quite right in suggesting, David, that there's a lot of snobbery, but it's often from people who can't get their books published and can't write a story themselves.
Yeah, you see that. I kind of did a little blog on Litopia the other day. There's an awful lot of sense that just because you write, the publishing industry is somehow kind of foolish to itself to not acknowledge your genius. And I was just trying to say, the publishing industry doesn't owe people who write a living.
Quite right.
It's not the publishing industry's fault that you have a drive to write. It's up to you to kind of make it good enough and commercial enough, which is, a dirty word amongst people who think their great opus should be recognised and so on.
Oh, that's farcical.
That people are prepared to risk money on it.
I absolutely agree with you. Why should a publisher lose money? They're in the game of making a profit the same as anyone else. They'll do their best occasionally to help a young author or to acknowledge a great author, but it's not their job to lose money every week.
Who was it who said that it's only a fool writes for anything but money or something along those lines,
Yes, it was. Yes, no, that was. Yes, I do know who that was. That was the American writer who's very witty and sharp, still alive and very old, or has he just recently died? Used to row with Norman Mailer the whole time. My brain's gone.
I can't remember who it was either, but I thought it was a pretty valid point. Yes, we do write because we enjoy it, but ultimately we're writing because we're trying to make some money as well.
Well, if it's your profession, if that's what you do.
Yeah. And on that note, just out of curiosity, at this point now, I mean, obviously it probably would have been different in the past, maybe not. What's most important to you now? The kind of the turnover of the book, if you like, the money it makes, or the critical acclaim?
Well, the money now is irrelevant. I'm too old to give a damn. I'm not going to get. You're not going to be able to. I know I'm not interested in planes and yachts and racing cars, so that's gone years ago. And I have enough money, thank you, to live the rest of my life, however long that's going to be. So it's neither that you suggested, David. I want to be read. I set out with my books desperately wanting more people to read them. That is my main aim. Now, of course, if more people read them, the cynical person will say, and you make more money, Jeffrey. But as I keep saying, I can't. There's nothing more I want in that particular field. Otherwise, I wouldn't be spending writing from 6 to 8, from 10 to 12, from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8, going to bed at 10 o'clock, getting up at 5:30 and doing it again. If that's what interested me, there are many easier ways. I have been offered quite recently the opportunity to write 4 books a year with my name on the cover, but I won't have written the contents.
Oh,
and
really?
I was offered £1 million a book to do this. I would give them a 1.5 page outline. Someone else would read it. Someone else would write it, and they would pay me £1 million for each book, £4 million a year for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And I said, under no circumstances, people who have read Cain and Abel, people who are currently reading the Clifton Chronicles, don't kid yourself, they will know I didn't write it. Yeah. And in any case, it's a con.
No, I would agree completely. I think the idea is to be read, isn't it? You want people to read your books and to enjoy them and get something out of them. That's the name of the game, isn't it? And on that note, there's another thing that there's often a debate that goes around, and I'd be curious from some of the things we were talking about earlier. A lot of people say a book must have a moral centre, it must have a message. And some people say that's nonsense, it should be a ripping yarn and that's the main thing. Where do you sit in the terms of whether a book should have a kind of a moral centre and a kind of be saying something, or should it just be a damn good story?
I think it should have a beginning, a middle and an end. And I think people should pick it up and not be able to put it down until the end of the book. If they get some moral leadership out of it, so be it. But if that's the reason you write it, you won't get many readers.
Ali, final thoughts, please, from the chat room.
Ireland wants to know if you've ever written or been published under a pen name. It seems a slightly odd thing to do for you.
No, never. What you get, what you see is what you get. I am proud of my work. I put it out to the public. Pray they will buy it. Pray they will like it and write the next one. No, I would never write under a pen name.
You pray that people will buy. You know people are going to buy it. Surely you don't, at this advanced stage in your career, you don't suffer from self-doubt, do you?
Oh, yes. When a new book comes out, Oh, God. There's two things. One, when I hand it to my agent to read it for the first time, I just don't sleep that weekend. And this week is the worst week of any week because the last 9 books have been number 1 in the bestsellers list. I will be told on Tuesday if I'm number 1. I'm number 1 in Australia at the moment, number 1 in India at the moment. I will be told on Tuesday if I'm number 1 on the Sunday Times. And at pretty well exactly 2:30, I will be told. And don't kid yourself, Dave. I am nervous about it, worried about it every single time. I don't like sex.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Ali, I'm going to ask you to tell Jeffrey what title suggestions we've had from the chat room. And Jeffrey, I'd like you to pick the title, please, for this week's show.
Right.
JDS suggested mythology. It's all Greek to me. We've also got the Gospel according to Jeffrey. Roaring Girl searching for the perfect story. Mr. Tibbs went for One Man, Many Facets, and also Surviving an Interesting Life. And Mr. Tibbs, I like this one actually, also went for An Extremely Able Man.
There's a little pun there, Cain and Abel, I get it, yes.
Roaring Girl went for The Handwritten Tweet. Issy went for @thequeen-UK. And then Mr. Tibbs went for Too Old to Live a Damn.
Well, I don't know, is that a lot?
No, Crime Afoot went for Rich Archer, Poor Archer. Roaring Girl.
Yeah.
Roaring Girl went for Arrow in the Bullseye.
It sounds very painful, actually, that does.
Yeah, it does a bit, doesn't it? Yeah. The Archer Still Has Two Fingers. And The Life of Pi, Cricket and Hancock.
Now, are you clever enough, you lot listening to this, you in particular, Ali, are you clever enough to tell me the significance of The Archer Has Two Fingers?
I know what it means
That's
in
far
terms
cleverer
of...
than I suspect most of you sitting in the studio realise.
Well, I think you're going to tell us about that. So why don't you explain
I've
that
got
to
a
us?
feeling I might.
Yeah, go on, tell us.
At Agincourt, when the French caught an archer, they cut off the two fingers with which he pulled the bow. And the reason for the modern V sign is that the archer at the time of Agincourt gave the French the two-fingered sign, which became the V sign. And when the French caught us, they chopped those two fingers off.
Well, there we are. You see, we've educated people as well tonight. Thank you very much for that little piece of enlightenment, Jeffrey. So is that the lot then, Ali?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. Now, Jeffrey, if you like any of those, pick the one you do. If you don't, then you'll have to write us a new title.
I quite like Too Old to Live a Damn. Yeah.
Too Old to
I am
Live a
too
Damn.
old to live a damn.
Oh,
Okay.
sounds a bit
Sorry,
cruel.
I'm curling up at the edges.
It's probably too much sun.
In fact, a very beautiful girl came up to me in the street the other day and said, could I have your autograph? And I said, yes, of course. Who shall I make it to? And she said, would you make it to Ellie? And I said, that's a very pretty name. She said, no, it's not me. It's my grandmother. Crept back into my shell and went home.
Dear. Right. Well, look, I think we've given everyone value for money tonight. Heaven knows what this show is going to end up
What do you mean
being.
value for money? You're not paying me, you pathetic worms.
Don't tell anybody. Please, heaven's sake, Jeffrey. Just our little secret, that is. Jeffrey, if you have a title, let us know which one it is. Otherwise, we will find a good title in the next day. So you've got a favourite at all?
The Liver Dam one.
The Liver Dam. All right. So that is what the show is going to be called. So it's going to be called Jeffrey Archer, Too Old to Live a Dam. Really?
Well, we could use the
Actually-
two fingers. The Archer still has two fingers.
No, I'll go for the two-finger one.
Two fingers.
The Archer still has two
two
fingers, yeah?
fingers. That's a bit nicer, isn't it, actually? Yes.
Yeah.
Good. The Archer
Yeah.
has two fingers. Fantastic. We got there eventually. Thank you very much indeed, Jeffrey. Your latest book, The Sins of the Fathers, is out right now. And if you like what you've heard tonight and you want to give Jeffrey something better than the sleepless nights that he's going to have for the next few days, then you should probably go and buy it now and make it a #1 bestseller. Thank you
And
also.
then tweet me, please.
And then
Tweet me.
Well, do you answer your tweets, Jeffrey?
I do. I
you?
certainly do.
So-
Please
so-
tweet me.
If somebody tweets you,
Please
you will tweet
retweet
them
me.
back.
Let me go. Yeah.
Alison puts them on my desk at 7:30 every morning.
retweet me.
Fantastic. Okay, so
Let
there you
me
go. So Jeffrey said he will answer your tweets if you care to do that. It's going to be busy all day, I think. Thank you very much, Dave, my co-host, and of course, Ali Gardner in the chat room, the muse of the chat room, the goddess. And thank you too for being part of the show. If you've been in the chat room tonight, if you haven't, if you're listening to the recording, which most people do, you need to join us next week for next week's show. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Open House is back next week at the usual time. Hit the like button under the show, please, to spread the word on Facebook and, of course, Twitter, which we've been talking a huge amount tonight. Had so much fun tonight, everyone. Why don't we do it all again this time next week? Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I've got so much left to say, but I'll take my words and walk away. I've got so much left to say, but I'll take my words and walk away. Bring it all back like you want me to pay, and your eyes, they say I should take the blame. There's only so many sorries that a person can say before you took my words and walked away.
And if you've enjoyed the show you've just listened to, then please do us a favour. Pop over to iTunes, search for Litopia, and give us a good review. See you soon.